Hi, it's Mild Red Songbird. I did Michelle Birdsong in New York City. I usually write my talks because I find I get new thoughts when I write. I go deep when I write. But today, and then when I read the thoughts onto YouTube, I don't always have the same inflections that I had when I was writing it. And sometimes the meaning gets obscured. So I'm trying something different today. I'm just going to talk my heart. And then I'll take the dictation and add the depth if necessary and put it on like Amazon Kindle or something like that. I'm prompted to do this video because my daughter Robin Birdsong, who went to the British Music Festival on Saturday, she has a VIP meet and greet pass here that she got from Stevie Wonder's brother Milton, and she's excited, and it had a profound effect on her because lately her life she's been evaluating her life, and she's not pleased with the progress she's made, although she's worked as hard as the society tells you need to work like a man. She's been working really hard at academia and areas that are not her. She's been working for security. And so now she's disappointed in where she is in life, and she's been tempted to go toward the mediocre life, toward a life of accepting the easiest way out. And so when she went to the concert on Saturday, she was reminded that she's an artist, and she was raised as an artist, around other artists. She calls Stevie Wonder Uncle Steve because he was a very important part of her life growing up, because he was good friends with her father, Edwin Birdsong. And I found out I have an Aquarius rising as a rebel, also genius, but rebel. And I have found out in my radical research, or the results of my research as radical truths, that Robin is actually Stevie Wonder's daughter. If you look at the nose, especially on this picture, the nose are the same, the mouth's the same. She's his daughter through Immaculate Conception. Excuse me. Because I've been doing spirit work as well as the five senses work, and I have discovered that I wanted to know what it would be like to make love with Stevie Wonder, and Stevie Wonder, who was Judas, wanted to know what it would be like to make love to Mary Magdalene, Jesus Christ's wife. You follow me? I took a leap there back to the first century. So those two desires were synchronicity, the Jung phrase. It means it happened simultaneously, which caused a spark of life, because that's the natural course of sex. Okay? So I wanted to know, my wanting to know what it would be like to have sex with Stevie Wonder actually manifested into having sex with Stevie Wonder on the imaginary plane. And Stevie Wonder, with a standing order, wanting to know what it felt like to make love to me, manifest making love to me on an imaginary level, and the two imaginary levels came together and created a baby. And that's how, because imagination is the invisible plane, the first step of the physical manifestation. So we conceived a child, and there she is. And I just found this out about a week ago when Robin took this picture at Edwin's funeral, And she said, his other daughter was on the picture also. Robin said, I look more like Steve than his daughter does. And I said, well, you can forget that. I never slept with Stevie Wonder. You see, because we think what we know is all of reality. There's a whole realm of reality, the invisible realm, which is more powerful, Charan Singh, the perfect living master, tells me, than the physical realm. So that's why I didn't recognize it. But then I opened my mind to it because there was no mistake about it. They do have the same nose, and Mary Panama pointed out they have the same mouths too. See, so there you go. All right, so Robin called me today, and she said that she was feeling, having seen Steve perform brought back memories of her life before she was settling in to trying to be something she's not. And she had thoughts of Edwin, who she thought was her father, and I thought was her father till 2 weeks ago. So it brought up questions that she had about Edwin that she knew she could never know because he's gone. He transitioned out of this body. And so she said, did he ever meet the Beatles? And I said, no. I said he saw John Lennon standing in front of the Polydor building one day when he came out of his record company meeting. But he really didn't care for the Beatles. He looked down on the Beatles. Edwin was a jazz fan. And jazz is a music where you create on the spot. You are on the hot spot when you do your jazz solos. And what that means is you play notes within the 12-note system. But you have to get back to the main melody in a certain amount of time. So you are sweating. You are on the line creating sounds within a given amount of time. Jimi Hendrix, a core, was a jazz musician. And Edwin was a jazz musician. Edwin was cynical about romance because he was so good at getting women. When I met him, he had a drawer full of European women when he had been in the army stationed in Germany. He slept with so many women, and they all had bikinis on and, practically naked. Women threw themselves at him. So he didn't really value romance. So the Beatles and their melodies, he just chalked up as being easy stuff, cheesy stuff. What he didn't okay, so let me say this at the onset. I have a tremendous amount of jazz musicians for being able to be so present in the moment, because that's not easy to do, in musically speaking, and it's not easy to do just as a matter of course of being a human being either. So Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, they're all geniuses. Of course, they did get, they got instructions from George Gershwin, the jazz classical music composer genius guy. And George Gershwin, because I asked my son, Sing Birdsong, who is a musician, I said, I heard from a black professor, I think he was from Queens College, said that George Gershwin tutored every great black jazz musician. And Sing said, yeah, well, that's true. So he knew it. Okay, now I found out recently some of Sing Birdsong's identities. Let me tell you these people's identities. It'll blow your mind. I read energy, by the way. I'm an empath. So I can look at a person and sense their identity. Those people close to me, that is. So Sing Birdsong was George Gershwin. He was also Jimi Hendrix. And he projected himself as Sly and the Family Stone. Let's go further back. I found his identity. He had been Mozart. Edwin, his father, had been Bach. His mother had been Beethoven. Okay? And let's see who else. He projected himself as Vangelis, the Greek electronic music composer. And he had been lots of kings. King Menelaus, King Saul, King Arthur, and King Charlemagne. So this is Sing Birdsong. You look at him, and you never know what a giant he is when you take into consideration all of his lives. My mother told me, she said, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. And this world is operating on a little bit of knowledge. They don't know who they are this life. Socrates said, know thyself. People are not engaged with knowing themselves, even though they've been instructed and given the clue that that's the way to be content and happy and productive. And people don't know their past lives. So let me tell you some of the past lives here. This is Jesus Christ, Guru Gurinder Singh. Now he was Saint Nicholas. He was the Santa Claus. He was, and Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ were a couple. And then he was Saint Nicholas Santa Claus, and Mary Magdalene was Mrs. Santa Claus. Let's go further back than that. When they were in heaven, he was the angel Gabriel, and she was the Archangel Michelle. She had first been the Archangel Michael, and then the son wanted pleasure. He wanted a daughter, so he put a reproductive system in Archangel Michael and he put teats for the baby to eat, and he put a clitoris in her so she could have the same sexual pleasure. A clitoris is the woman's equivalent of a penis, so she could have the same basis for life that men have. And he made her a woman, which I call a woman, W-O-M-B, because there's a womb in her body. It makes more sense than woman. Woman makes no sense. I don't even like the sound of the word. Okay, so talking about invisible things happening. In North Carolina last year, 2018, Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene came together. She went there to see him speak to his hundreds and thousands of disciples. And to make a long story short, they had eye sex. That is, they looked into each other's eyes and down into their souls, and had the ultimate feeling of union, which is sex in the physical. So they had sex and they created a baby. It's in her womb now. It says in the womb now. And the baby is Aria Michelle. Aria, I always say it that way, but it's Aria Elizabeth Michelle. And then a few days later, he told her to go out and look at the sun, God, and she did. And he pulled out a supreme being, plunged it in her legs, between her legs, and put a baby. And they had sex because she worships him as her star, and he said she's his star. So they had the ultimate love too, the ultimate joining too, uniting spiritually, which manifests into a physical baby, Giancarlo Arturo. He's in the womb too, so she's pregnant with twins by the son and by his son, and she is his daughter. Okay, isn't this interesting? Now this is Michael Buble, is a projection of Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ, I didn't finish telling you his identities. He's been a projection of Paul Simon, Barry White, Luther Vandross, Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong, Frankie Valli, Barry Manilow, Ricky Nelson, Dean Martin, Bobby Hatfield, the righteous brother that sings Unchained Melody, that sexy song in the movie Ghost. And so many other rock stars. So he's going to stop being a guru. Well, let me tell you a story quickly. When she went to North Carolina to see Gurinder Singh, they had a relationship in her head because he's in her body. When she was 5 years old, he got into her brain behind her pineal gland to protect her from enemies. And so he's been there ever since. She was afraid to know he was there. When she was about 25, he said to her, "I'm going to stop your heart." That was the first time he had tried to contact her. And she thought it was the voice of God. So she lied still for a moment. And then she panicked, "Stop my heart. Somebody in my head's going to kill me." And she doubted that it was God. She got scared and ran out of the bed and to the Bible and looked into the Bible, and whatever she read scared her. I don't remember what I read. So then she went back to New York. She was an airline stewardess. And she flipped out. She had a nervous breakdown. So you see, he couldn't just say to her, "I am God, I am Jesus Christ, you are Mary Magdalene." He couldn't just do that. He had to take baby steps with her, with me. And so at this stage, which is like, 60 years he's been doing this. About 2 years ago, I just started listening to him unafraid. I had suffered so greatly as a homeless person that I just said, why don't I just stop being afraid? Fear's not getting me anywhere. I have slept in bus stops. I have slept on the floor of Chase ATMs. What is there to fear? I have slept in McDonald's bathrooms. So I listened to him. So we established a relationship of trust because he was available at all times, 24/7. So where am I going with this? So in North Carolina. So then I wanted to go. So then I heard he was coming to the States from India, and I said, I want to go and get a hug and a kiss. I want to make sure this is real, that this is not just my imagination, because nobody believed me, except Mary Panama believed that I was talking to God. I used to call him Baba G, So I went to North Carolina, and I said to myself, I've been homeless for 5 years. This will be a good opportunity for me to get some loving from my friends. I have friends who are satsangis, who are disciples of Gurinder Singh's, and I can reunite with them and get some love that I missed these past years that I've been homeless and going through holy hell. So when I got to North Carolina, my friends totally snubbed me. They weren't my friends because I had missing teeth and my clothes were shabby, and I just didn't look like the winner that they had thought of me as. Because after all, I was the wife of a recording artist, Edwin Birdsong. We had a talent show. My 3 children all played musical instruments. Melanie Lynn Spear, my youngest, played the violin. She was 5 years old. Robin played the violin, and Singh played the guitar like Jimi Hendrix. So so they had this image of me as being a winner, and here I come dragging into North Carolina, telling them, this is what happens if you stay on the path. And they couldn't deal with it, so they wouldn't talk to me, they wouldn't look at me, they wouldn't touch me, nothing. So when Gurinder Singh came on stage, I was completely into him. I didn't care about these friends. I didn't know what had happened. I hadn't analyzed why they snubbed me, but I didn't care. I just cared about him. And when he was in Petaluma, California, the first time he gave me the baby, I've been pregnant before, and I had a miscarriage because I didn't believe I was pregnant. Because how could you be pregnant if you don't have sex? You see, I was a victim of this limited simulation we're in with the five senses. But anyway, that day in Petaluma, before I went in to see him, I got very paranoid. I thought some people, two guys, were out to kill him. They looked very strange, like white supremacists or something, and he is brown. And so, although they classify Indians as white. But anyway, I was convinced that, they were out to kill him because they were drinking coffee. And I said, they don't seem very reverential. They're going in to see God. We were all in a line. They don't seem like they understand they're going in to see God. They seem very matter of fact. So I got paranoid. So I realized in my fear that they were going to hurt him, that I couldn't live without him. And I didn't even know that I was surprised, but I realized I wouldn't want to live without him. He is the light of my life, which is a song by Debbie Boone. You light up my life. Okay, and so, but in North Carolina, he made a baby in me. And he married me, I should say that. He married me. So that was a turning point in my life. And I didn't get the hug and the kiss, but I got a husband and a baby, so that's the same equivalent, isn't it? Okay, so let me finish what I was saying about the Beatles. So Edwin looked down on the Beatles, and I was telling Robin, I said, because the Beatles were mediocre musicians, at least John Lennon was. He said he was embarrassed at his own guitar playing. But I said to Robin, that wasn't a point. The Beatles were not jazz musicians. Jazz musicians show off their skill of being able to be strong and stay present and play those notes, go far out and playing notes and get back to home base to that whole melody just in time, musically speaking. Because music is like math, it has timing. That's not what the Beatles were about. The Beatles were about communicating with the masses. The masses don't understand jazz. They don't know that the jazz musicians are showing them their dexterity, and they don't know that. They just know it doesn't sound very pretty. It doesn't have sweet melody. So there's room in this world for both. There's room if you want to go and see somebody play incredible manipulation of music, and that's jazz, and have your mind blowing at their ability to do this, to operate under pressure on the moment. You go and see jazz. If you want to communicate, I want to hold your hand. That's simple genius. Of course every little boy wants to hold a little girl's hand, And the Beatles speak for the masses, and they are geniuses in what they do. It's like I was telling Robin, Mozart played sublime melodies. He was a genius for that. Beethoven did what jazz musicians do. He went far out there, but he got back to the home melody. His genius was structure. Okay? And I would say that Stevie Wonder, I forgot to tell you, when I was 9 years old, Stevie Wonder wanted to know what it felt like to see. And I wanted to know what it felt like to be blind. Because there was a preacher in my church who was blind. And one day he said, when I was 5 years old, he said, "Burn in hell for eternity." And my imagination went to hell burning for eternity. And it scared me so bad. I thought I was going to stay there, but apparently I came back to my senses. But some years later, I never forgot that, and I wanted to understand that preacher. So I wanted to know what he felt, that he would do that to a 5-year-old child, send her to hell like that. because I had no boundary. I just whatever he said, I did. My imagination did. My mind ran away from me. Got away from me. You've heard that expression. Well, that's an example of it. So that's why I wanted to know what it felt like to be blind. So at the same moment, more synchronicity, Judas and Mary Magdalene had the same desire. A desire having to do with sight and blindness. And so he got his desire, the ability to see, because he got my energy. And I got my desire, the ability not to see. I got his energy. So when you see Stevie Wonder is Beethoven energy. And I can tell you some of my other identities at this stage. Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Emily Dickinson, Emerson, Robert Frost, Mark Twain projection, and who else? Ayn Rand. So you see, I have all these energies in me that Stevie Wonder puts to use, and I got his energy of a ghetto mentality, parents who was a prostitute, the mother and the father a pimp, and negative thinking, the curse of the black people. The black people are the original Jews, so they are cursed. They are, what's that word, punishing themselves for having killed Christ. And the people who call themselves Jews are actually fake Jews. I heard another guy refer to them as fake Jews, so I'm not the only one who knows this. So, make a long story short, I wrote a book recently, Conspiracy of God and Country, where I explain that Jesus Christ was training Mary Magdalene to be able to be his equal, so they could be husband and wife for eternity. And she sang a song, Jesus Christ Superstar. I don't know how to love him, I don't know how to move him. And so he's been training her to know how to love him. And I'm not being clear on this. She has suffered so much over the years that she's paid for the sins of the black people, and she's paid for the sins of Christ's killer Judas. So that makes her a saint. So you got Saint Michelle. And now she can love him as an equal because her sacrificing and suffering all these years, which he engineered. And he, of course, is a great sacrificer. He gave the ultimate price, his life. So they are compatible. So he trained her successfully. So that's astonishing, right? Most of what I said is astonishing. Let's give Michael Buble some props before I go. He was Michael Jackson projection. He was Frank Sinatra, and he was Elvis Presley. So he's a giant too. So you're looking at these giants. This is I live here at St. Francis of Assisi. He got me here. Guru Gurinder Singh got me here. So in this hotel, so I could have a place to write, make videos, and tell you about my research as I'm doing. And I have found my family here. I also found a bunch of disciples, a bunch of his disciples, Jesus Christ's disciples from the first century here. And this is John Milton, who wrote Paradise Lost. We found paradise again. And it's a state of mind, heaven. And he was Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey he wrote, Greek culture. And this is my work of art, a collage that was shown at the downtown, displayed downtown Manhattan. Another of my artwork is shown in Mumbai, India. Okay, so do you understand that the Beatles are needed? The Beatles were geniuses in their own way, and jazz musicians are needed, and classical music geniuses are needed. It's room for all three. Okay, this is a big world. There's only one world, but it's big. Okay, my red songbird, the Michelle Birdsong in New York City. I hope I have encapsulated my whole, so much of my research. This is Edwin Birdsong's album, What It Is, that he and I worked together. Gary Bird said this is his masterpiece album. This is his first album. Okay, so long.